Bom dia a todos e todas. Sejam bem-vindos ao lançamento do novo relatório da Anistia Internacional. Você matou meu filho, homicídios cometidos pela Polícia Militar na cidade do Rio de Janeiro. Eu vou explicar rapidamente como que o evento vai funcionar. Ele está sendo transmitido ao vivo. Ele é uma coletiva de imprensa, então a equipe da Anistia, que já está aqui na mesa, o nosso diretor executivo, Átila Roque, e os assessores, Renata Neder e Alexandre Ciconello, vão apresentar o relatório durante 45 minutos e depois nós vamos abrir para as perguntas. Nós vamos começar com 2 blocos de 3 perguntas para as equipes que estão aqui presentes. Depois vamos abrir para o pessoal que está podendo participar via Twitter, tanto no Brasil.
Those who are here in the auditorium and the other one for those who are listening to us in the internet. We will have a third block of questions and answers, totalizing 45 minutes. Thank you.
Bom dia. Bom dia a todas, bom dia a todos, bom dia a quem está nos acompanhando pela internet. Aproveito para desejar, antes que eu esqueça,
thank beforehand our voluntary translators, interpreters that will help us to spread the word here. I am Átila Roque. I am Executive Director of Amnesty International. Before I come to our presentation, I would like to say some things.
A importância desse momento para nós.
This is a very important moment to us. Amnesty International has been following up for decades the theme of public security, especially violence perpetrated by police or law enforcement. Why is this important? Well, we're talking about what in a rule of law can be called the frontier between civilization and barbarism. State has the monopoly of violence. Law enforcement can carry fire guns and are allowed to use those fire guns in specific situations. We, as citizens, are not allowed to do that. That's why it is very important to understand how to use lethal force. We know that in the history of Rio, we have been having many doubts about facts, specifically related to resistance followed by death. Those are situations in which we don't really know if justice has been done or we're dealing with extrajudicial executions. As you know, Amnesty International is a mixture of an organization, an international organization. We are here present nationally and internationally. We are researchers and activists in that, and we are above all a movement, a grassroots movement of citizens fighting for human rights. We are composed of about 7 million people around the world, and that gives us strength and courage to keep up doing our work. Today, we have some people we have been working with right here in the auditorium, many members and supporters, also partner organizations of civil society, which have been supporting and fighting with us for decades. So I'd like to emphasize that we are not here in Brazil inaugurating a new fight. We are partnering with people who have been here for decades fighting for those questions. So we're very moved that many community members, especially of mothers of the community of Acari, that they are here, which are cases that have been reported in our report. I would like to thank all of you for being here, and I would like to tell you how important it is that you show courage and that you show that it is important that those cases keep up being investigated and and that you keep up saying that your pain is the pain of our society, of the failure of one part of our rule of law. This is very important. We know that the fight of the mothers and family members and community has been fundamental so that cases keep up being investigated. We have some cases which have been successful, and they have been successful because of the courage showed by family members and mothers. So I would like to express here, on behalf of Amnesty International, and of course on behalf of all of here in Brazil and in the world, that we fight for a just society, and to show that we have rights and they have to be plainly, fully fulfilled. One last thing I would like to mention is that it is important to say that what we're going to be saying here is very tough. It is very hard. We know that public security operators find that very hard. We have to try to make an effort to understand the pain of the others, and we know that that brings with it harsh results. What we do here is to defend good law enforcement, just law enforcement, and we would like to defend also those here that fight for just law enforcement. We know that there are commanders, we know that we have police officers that share with us the same values, that believe in what we say, but we know that we are seeing things from different perspectives, and we would like to acknowledge this. I know this is a very hard statement. This is this is not easy on law enforcement, but we would like to stress that we are defending the society as a whole, and we of course defend a change in the logic of law enforcement. We would like to emphasize the rupture of unjust law enforcement, of bad police enforcement in areas which have been considered war areas, so that all of society stands in a win-win situation. This is something that we emphasize very often. Police in Brazil kills too many, and we have to acknowledge it executes. I have here with me Renata Neder and Alexandre Ciconello. They are both activists from our team here. I would like to stress that this report is a collective effort. It involves our team here in Brazil and many colleagues and specialists and professionals from other parts of the world. Know-how and the experience of Amnesty in other areas of the world has been fundamental to help us in our own perspective here. This has to be acknowledged. And since we're online, we're being streamed to everyone, I would like to publicly address our colleagues from other sessions, from other secretariats, from our international secretariat, who have been working very hard to work with us and ensure that this report would come out fair and balanced. Having said that, and without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Renata, and she will start talking about the report, and afterwards then Alexandre. Good morning, Renata.
Em
In November 2014, Amnesty International released the campaign Young, Black and Alive. This was targeted to publicize the high level of homicide in Brazil, especially among black youngsters. Brazil is the country that has the highest numbers of homicides in the world. In 2012, there were 56 victims. And this lethal violence does not affect everybody in the same way. Black young men are priority victims in Brazil. We need to end this epidemics of indifference by the Brazilian society about these deaths of black youngsters. And with this campaign, Amnesty International has called the society for this debate. However, it is important to advance in the agenda of public safety and not only discuss and request a policy of reduction of homicides as a whole, and a specific policy for reducing homicides, especially homicides of black youngsters. And it is also important to check homicides done by the police. Amnesty International has chosen to study homicides by the police on duty in the state of Rio de Janeiro. The state of Rio de Janeiro is one of the few states that have data and that give away this data about homicide by the police. Amnesty International had access to this data and is showing those data in the report in order to have a context for violence by the police in Rio. In the recent 10 years, after 2007, there was a trend in decreasing number of deaths caused by the police. However, between 2013 and 2014 was an increase of almost 40% in the cases of homicides by police acts. This was especially in the areas of the capital of Rio and in the backlands of Rio. Some factors can explain this trend of decrease after 2007. For instance, the creation of police pacifying units in some areas of the city. In those areas, there was an expressive reduction of the number of homicides by police acts. There is also a system of targets in the public security areas that had specific targets on homicide resulting from police acts. And there was also a decree by the police that created specific measures to investigate homicides by police acts. And why should we speak about homicides resulting from police acts in a country where the number of homicides is so high? First of all, because we will all be benefited by a police that acts only legally. And also because the homicides resulting from police acts are a significant part of the homicides. When we analyze the data by the Public Security Institute, we can evaluate this percentage in relation to the total number of homicides in the city of Rio between 2010 and 2014. In 2010, this was 21%, the number of homicides by the police. In 2014, this was some 15% of the total homicides. And we are talking about the cases registered as homicides resulting from police action. So we are not considered by homicides caused by the police on duty, but logged as normal homicides and deaths by policemen who were not on duty. Amnesty International had access of data by sex, age, race, and color in the profile of victims of homicides by police acts. And what we can see again is that the profile of the victim killed by policemen follows the same pattern of the general victim of homicides, a black young man. The data presented by Amnesty International in this report reveal that from the victims of homicides resulting from police action between 2010 and 2013, 99.5% were men and 75% were young men. After this context, the report focused on the year of 2014 in some specific cases resulting from police acts in order to review a little bit about the dynamics of those deaths. In 2014, we have the wrong title in the slide. Those are data from the recent 10 years. So 8,466 victims of homicides resulting from police action in the state of Rio de Janeiro and 5,132 in the capital city in the recent 10 years. So when we focus specifically in 2014, Amnesty International identified for this report the geographic distribution of the places where those homicides resulting from police acts happened. We can see that the 41st Battalion is the area that has the highest number of those homicides, 68 police reports in 2014. And in this police area, which is the number that has the highest number of homicides by the police, specific area, the Acari slum, to do a field work. And why did we follow Acari? What was the methodology? First, we decided to use a lens to identify the areas that had the highest levels of homicides resulting from police acts, and then we chose the Acari slum. In 2014, after the World Cup, advocates of human rights in the Acari slum contacted Amnesty International to report police acts after World Cup there, and they reported on homicides and deaths caused by the police. Amnesty International, together with all other human rights organizations, organized meetings with many inhabitants and created an urgent action to denounce those deaths. Amnesty also has a historical relationship with the community in Acari. We did an international campaign requesting justice for the Acari killing, which is 25 years old this year, and still no one was punished. We also created the campaign for the justice of Edneia, who was killed, and 22 years after, this case has not been prosecuted. She was the mother of one of the disappeared youngsters in Acari. So the methodology was Amnesty International had access to 10 police reports of police violence in Acari this year, and we interviewed many people in Acari to try to identify the dynamics of those deaths and contrast that with the police reports. So now I will pass the word to Alexandre Ciconella. And welcome everybody.
As Renata said, we looked at all the occurrences of the 10 victims, of policial intervention in Acari. We can see here in this chart the name of all the victims and also the date of their homicide, their age, and what was the battalion responsible for this killing. Out of 10 cases in Acari, we have 4 cases that involved policemen of the Special Ops Battalion here in Rio. We have other 4 cases from the 41st Battalion, which is responsible for the assessment of these area, and other 2 cases by another battalion. Although we have this configuration of Acari in the area of the 39th police assessment within the 41st Battalion, there are other homicides being perpetrated. 31 of them were committed by policemen of the 41st Battalion. Those names with the marking have been changed for matters of anonymity so as to protect the family of the victims. In this map, we have the geography of the slum of Acari. Here we have on the yellow dots or spots, we have the places where those homicides were perpetrated. Those are information of 2012. This community has been living since the past 25 years under police violence, and we can see that those killings have been perpetrated in near areas, which means that this slum has been permanently victim of violence. Now, those 10 killings that I've showed you, we have identified some patterns. First of all, the description, the official description within the register of occurrence of the police. They always say there was unjust aggression against the police, and the police had to act in self-defense. Among those 10 cases, we had information on 9 cases through registers and interviews with the family and other people around. In 9 cases, we have strong evidence of extrajudicial executions. So, apart from those that we showed in the other slide, we have those that have great evidence of that. How did they happen? One very important maneuver of the police in Brazil is called Troia, which is a sort of ambush this was reported by people from the community and also people from civil police. There is how does it happen? The operation comes to an end. Policemen are then hidden, or they hide themselves in houses of community members. Also, when people are in there, so people are told to remain there. In some cases, community members are not there, and then they perpetrate their execution strategy. So when the person goes through the street, the person is then targeted by the policeman in this Troia strategy. In the case of Davi, which happened in March 2014, he was shot and he dragged himself up to his home. His mother lived nearby. This happened at 11:30 a.m. All the family was there. They gathered together to take him. He was still only injured. They gathered together to take him to the hospital. His mother threw himself upon the body of Davi, and policemen did not let him be taken to the hospital, and he died on the spot. Also, in his case, when investigators of civil police arrived there 5 hours later, the community manifested themselves and saying that this was an execution. In the case of Pedro Ivo, what happened was a mega operation in the favela of Acari. Again, the 41st Battalion, the Special Operations Battalion was involved. They came into the favela shooting Pedro Ivo. He was 19 years of age. He was a Christian, and he was talking to another youngster, which was 17 years old, and he was inviting him to come to church with him. Police came in shooting. There was no confrontation at the time, and both Pedro Ivo and Lucas died on the spot. They were together on the street on that day. Next slide. The other 4 cases that occurred when the victims were either surrendered already or the victim was already injured and did not pose any threat to the life of police officers. And we know that within the international standards of lethal force use, we know that lethal force can only be used when there is reasonably the situation where the policeman is in danger, and it has to be used proportionately. In those cases, however, the victims were already surrendered, and they were executed by military police. In the case of Gustavo, he had already been shot once. He was 31 years of age. He used to deal for the drugs on local level. Policeman came up to Gustavo and said, "I want your soul now," and he executed him. In other cases, the same pattern has been seen again and again. We have been hearing many times from family members and dwellers of Acari always the same statement. They always say to us, did they need to kill them? Why didn't they just arrest them? This happened in those 5 deaths that I've been showing you. And beyond those registered resistance followed by death, homicides, and apart from other statistics that we have been showing you, there are other homicides happening in the context of police ops that are not registered. Those deaths do not come into the official statistics. In the case of Acari, there were 2 other deaths. João in August last year, within the context of a police operation, there was a shooting between criminals and policemen of the 41st Battalion. João was a cultural producer, and he was working at the time, and he ended up being shot. In this case, we weren't able to gather information to verify out of which gun came the shot that killed him. In the case of Ana Claudia, in November 2014, she was pregnant, and she was leaving home to pick up another child of hers, and the child was 8 years of age. She heard some shots, and he went out to pick him up, and she was killed by a shot coming out of an armored vehicle. Her mother had already lost 1 daughter 20 years ago. Silene was her name, and she had been also executed while she was pregnant. There has been no accountability of the first death that happened 20 years ago. The homicides due to police intervention in Acari, they are the top of an iceberg. of a much broader context of abuse and violence from the police towards the community. Amnesty International has focused only on homicides, but we know of other abuses since we have other reports of other abuses within the community. There are many reports of theft, of unlawful trespassing of property, of abuses within the child care facility in Acari. We know of helicopters that used to shoot down towards the child care facility in Acari. Here in the picture we see a person that was shot on the leg by an armored vehicle. At that time he was 19 years of age. Now he's not able to work. He's much older now. He needed, of course, to stay many months in the hospital. So we know that the problem are not only the homicides, but also this permanent abuse and strategies of the police acting in Rio de Janeiro. Our report has been showing also other homicides provoked by the police in Rio in 2014 and 2015. Those homicides are not registered as homicides by police intervention. They are not within the official statistics, but they show a pattern of action, of police action, that show the criminalization of the victim, which is an attempt to justify self-defense. That is what we have been following in investigations. Investigations usually focus on criminalization of the victim, not only in Acari. We have been seeing this in other places within Rio. In many cases in Rio, there have been moves of crime scenes, alterations of crime scenes. This is the case of Alan de Souza Lima, 16 years of age. He was waiting for pizza delivery in the community of Palmeirinha. Early this year, policemen came in the community shooting. There was at first an attempt to place a gun on the hands of Alan, which was already a victim, and this homicide was initially registered as resistance followed by death. Another friend of Alan, Shawan, was shot in his chest. He was taken to the hospital and he was arrested because of the version of the story told by the policeman. Only this could be the truth came out because Alan was filming with his cell phone what was happening. So he actually filmed his own death at the moment, and that for that reason, Shawan was released, and this lie of the police was could then be repaired. The same situation of DG. He was a dancer in a show here in Rio, and he was shot. His body was altered, was washed, so that policemen would come away with charges of crime. Here we have two further cases. The case of Jonathan. He was 19 years of age. He was killed by military police force of the pacifying police unit in 2014 in Manguinhos. Initially, one tried to register this homicide as resistance followed by, in his case, possible. The family members acted on behalf of him. And the case of Eduardo, 10 years of age, he was sitting in front of his house playing with a cell phone, and policemen came in to the complex, to Complexo do Limão. There was no conflict, there was no shootout. They came into this residential area, and as they saw Eduardo, they shot at him, and he passed away. In this case, there was an attempt to change the crime scene. Thanks to family members and neighbors, this was not able to come to pass. They did not allow the body to be moved, and in these cases, there are emblematic cases happening here in Rio, and they show a pattern of action, which we have also identified in Acari and in other regions of Rio de Janeiro.
The cases that Alexandre just described reveal how just based on the mobilization by the mothers, the family members, and the inhabitants of the areas where the police homicides happen, the cases have a possibility of being investigated and taken to the justice. The mobilization of these people, in spite of all the pain, in spite of the threats and intimidations that they suffer, needs to be valued, because this mobilization is essential in the fight for justice. And now, living in specific cases, Amnesty International also wanted to research the meaning of this case of impunity for homicide resulting from police actions in numbers. Amnesty International had access to the situation, to the status. These reports in cases of homicides resulting from police action in the year 2011. And it is a shocking image. In 2011, in the city of Rio de Janeiro, 220 registered, 183 deaths. Sometimes one police report has more than one victim. In this total of 220 police reports, until April 2015, 4 years later, only was a case by the public prosecutor's office against police involved. But those investigations were not closed. In 12 cases, there is a request of public prosecutor's office, and this case is due to lack of evidence on the case. Many institutions have a responsibility in this impunity scenario. On the one hand, the police officers who commit homicides and try to change the crime scene, try to criminalize the victim. The civil police does not investigate. The public prosecutor's office does not control the police activity. However, we know that there are human rights advocates who fight for years, especially in the city of Rio, especially in Acari, so that these cases are not forgotten and do not remain unprosecuted. In this image, we can see Delei de Acari. He is a leader, a widely known leader, a human rights advocate who has a historical relationship with Amnesty International, is always fighting for justice and against police violence in Rio. The human rights advocates suffer frequently threats and attacks in Rio de Janeiro, and in spite of that, they continue their fight. The absence of a mechanism to defend human rights advocates is also a factor that results in those cases of resistance followed by death and police violence in impunity. the threats to witnesses and the lack of a good mechanism to protect witnesses after they go to the police is also a problem for justice in cases of homicides resulting from police action. We hope that the authorities in the state of Rio make a commitment to guarantee effective mechanisms to guarantee the security and the safety of human rights advocates, family members and witnesses of cases resulting from police actions that are in this report and in all the other cases that happen in the state of Rio de Janeiro. Now I will go to the conclusions of the report, and then Attila will explain the recommendations by Amnesty International. With this report, Amnesty concludes that the military police has been using force in an unnecessary, excessive and arbitrary way, not respecting the laws and protocols about use of lethal weapons. This results in many violations of human rights and a high number of fatal victims, who are mostly black young men. The police reports about reports resulting from police actions has been used to hide extrajudicial executions. And the lack of investigation and consequent impunity of cases reported this way leads military police officers to use this kind of reports to hide their executions. In most cases of homicides resulting from police action, in 2014, in the slum of Acari, those were 10 cases, and among those 10, we could investigate 9. So in all 9, there are strong evidence of executions. Recent public policies in Rio de Janeiro were not able to end extrajudicial executions in Rio de Janeiro. We know that in recent years there were important efforts to reduce the number of deaths in police actions and try to guarantee the investigations. There was a trend of reduction in recent years, but the cases went up again significantly among 2013 and 14. The logic of the war on drugs results in unnecessary use of force and justifies violations of human rights, such as threats to inhabitants, invasions of houses, physical aggressions, and executions. This war on drugs makes hundreds of victims every year in Brazil, and those practices seem to be supported by the institutions of the criminal justice system that have not acted to investigate homicides by police officers. Frequently, the investigation is slow, is full of gaps, and this results in not punishing police officers involved in the cases. So we need serious investigations to reach a conclusion and see if there was legitimate use of force. Amnesty has identified some elements that contribute to the impunity generated by police officers. For instance, change of the crime scene, criminalization of the victim, lack of investigation, and a lack of action of public prosecutor's office to control police activity, and the absence of a mechanism to protect witnesses, family members, and human rights advocates cause damages to the investigations and results in violence to those people. The lack of adequate investigations of cases of homicides by police officers sends a message that those deaths are tolerated by the authorities. And this high level of impunity feeds the cycle of police violence in Rio. Now I'll pass the floor to Attila Roque to speak about recommendations.
Thank you, Renata. After this presentation, so that you had a good idea of what we had in the report, it is our practice to issue some recommendations at the end of our reports. And in this specific case, those recommendations and the content of our report was presented to the higher command and the Secretary of Public Security here in Brazil, Secretary Beltrami, and other commanders and other authorities of Homicides Division. So it is very important to state that this was already presented and debated very clearly before our report comes out. It is also very important to stress this is an international report. It is launched here in Brazil, but it's also launched in English and Spanish. We see this also, thus as a starting point, as a window of opportunity, so that all relevant actors within the society and the state will be able to recognize the importance and the greatness of this theme. We want to build up democracy and rule of law here in Brazil. We have presented 20 recommendations directed to the government of Rio de Janeiro State, also to the Public Prosecutor's Office, to the federal government, and also to National Congress. Of course, you have the reports in your hands. I will not read all of the recommendations. I will stress some of them that are going to be subject to our further talk here. Directed to the government of Rio de Janeiro State, I would like to stress 4 recommendations. The first one is to ensure that a full, independent, prompt, and impartial investigations of all killings resulting from police intervention is carried out in order to enable those involved to be brought to justice and held criminally accountable where appropriate. Another recommendation to determine that all killings resulting from police intervention must be investigated by the Homicide Division, which must perform a full, independent, prompt, and impartial investigation. This is a very, very important recommendation because today the cases of so-called resistance followed by death are not investigated by the Homicide Division. Of course, they have to have the appropriate instruments to do that. Another very important question, which has to do to what Renata was saying some minutes ago, is the strengthen of the protection program for victims and witnesses, and the protection program for human rights defenders in the state, guaranteeing that they have the necessary material, institutional, and financial structures to effectively achieve their objectives. And another recommendation, our last one, to the government of Rio State is to strictly control the use of high-powered firearms such as rifles and automatic weapons during police operations in favelas and in other densely populated urban areas. Such weapons must only be used in exceptional circumstances of extreme danger, where their use is essential to achieve a legitimate law enforcement objective. We have seen the impact of the use of those weapons in those territories. To the recommend complete investigations that are still underway and bring the cases to justice. To the federal government, we recommend three main implementations, independently of the type of homicides, that they will be investigated as homicides, and that they substitute generic terms within the reports, and that does not lead to the result that has been leading to that. Unfortunately, the generic terms within the investigations would hold us from knowing what happened actually in the crime scene and the police operation. Urgently implement a national program aimed at reducing homicide rates, which include targets at national and state level to reduce the number of deaths resulting from police intervention. We are one of the countries where the most homicides happen, as 56,000 people murdered, and program to deal with that. So this is a priority. This is very important to us. Finally, we recommend to the federal government to promote the necessary measures for information and statistical data about killings so that they be standardized at national level, and so that all states will provide periodic information about the number of people killed in police operations. This is absolutely important. This is vital. Brazil does not have a clear statistics on how many deaths were caused by police operations. To the National Congress to approve the bill 4471/2012, which amends the Code of Criminal Procedure and establishes procedures to guarantee the proper investigation of crimes resulting in violent death that involve enforcement officials. And another recommendation to incorporate international law, the international principles and standards on the use of force, particularly those set out in the United States Code of Conduct for Law Enforcement Officials and in the United States Basic Principles on the Use of Force and Firearms by law enforcement officials. Those are some of the recommendations in our report. This report, as I said previously, this is a starting point, not an end point. We are also launching a petition which reinforces some of those recommendations and reinforces also other measures. This petition can be accessed in our website and the website of Amnesty International. This is an international petition, an international action, and we hope that you will join us and spread the word, so that we can pressure our authorities so that the recommendation and measures that have been stated here will be then taken forward. I would like to ask Thais to moderate now the debate. She will state to us how our Q&As will follow. We would like to open up for questions now. We will have some 30 minutes for that. We'll open up to the press or others and other guests here. I would like to offer the first block to the press. I would like to ask you to name yourself and say where you work, and then state your question. Good morning. My name is Saulo. I am reporter of Veja Rio, which is a magazine, a Brazilian magazine. I would like to know from Amnesty International if there was any position on the part of the 41st Battalion. What do they have? What do they say about what you said to us right now? Questions, and then we will give the word. Perhaps Monica. Good morning. My name is Rosângela. I am from Criar Brasil, and I would like to know if those data were analyzed. I understand those data are regard Rio de Janeiro. Do you believe that those data represent the reality in the country as a whole? And do you intend to go after data for other regions or national data here in Brazil? Another question. My name is Luis. I am from Associated Press. You said that you debated the report with the Secretariat, with the Public Security Secretariat and Secretary. What did they say?
Alô, obrigado. Bom, eu vou dar respostas e, naturalmente, Renata e Alexandre podem
So I'll try to answer you in relation to talking to the 41st Battalion, which is responsible for the area of Acari and also other neighborhoods. So that's the area where we did our research, the area that had the highest numbers of homicides, including police authorities, police officers who work for the military police and for the civil police. We do not specify where the witness was located, so we would request the press to talk to them directly. We are not allowed to talk on behalf of the police, so it is important to talk in relation to research in other areas of Brazil that we presented here has been the subject of many reports by Amnesty International, including our annual report, and we that this is an issue that also happens sometimes in harder ways in other regions and states of Brazil. Of course, not always the data is available because there is a lack of systematic organization of data in other places. So one of the recommendations is about that. One of the advantages of researching in Rio, not only because of the history in Rio in this subject, but also there is the advantage that the Public Institute of Rio de Janeiro is a model in Brazil of transparency and of systematization of data. But yes, we are planning to study to other places. We have been working with similar issues. In Bahia, we have worked strongly in the case Cabula, in the state of Bahia. 12 people were probably executed. This is in our agenda. And we are also working. Yes, Manaus, Renata is reminding me. No, you don't have to give a lot of examples, but we have some examples of situations where Amnesty is working out of the state of Rio de Janeiro, but due to local partnerships and also due to our capacity of doing a good work, we will try to move this work to other places. Now, in relation to the third question, which was about the presentation to the heads of the police on Thursday. We had two meetings. In the first meeting, we were doing the research, and we had a meeting with the Secretary Beltrame and other people, and we made a commitment to present of the report before going public. So this was the meeting on Thursdays. And I believe just is not frequent. The three of us were there representing an international organization that works in Brazil, and we were there for talking to you, including the Secretary of Public Security, Fernando Veloso. Also, Joana, who is the president of the Public Security Institute that produces the data, and other people. So, this fact is very important. And from the point of view of Amnesty, we would like to see this happening more frequently, because, again, it is essential that we see ourselves as part of an effort by the society and by the state to change a tradition, that has deep roots in the area of public security in Brazil, an agenda that was forgotten in the transition to democracy, and that still has a legacy and it's created by the dictatorship. This is a huge challenge, but we cannot not talk about it and not put it in one of our priorities. So we have to discuss this, including public security professionals. They need to be a part of this debate. But not only them, I would like to hear a prioritization to the agenda of public security of the highest authorities in the country, including the Ministry of Economics. I would like Joaquim Levy to tell what is his priority, what is he doing to reduce this tragedy. Almost 60,000 deaths by homicide in Brazil every year, and of it is young people, and 77% of those young people are black. So I'd like to listen to Joaquim Levy, to the President of the Central Bank, and to the President of the Republic. I'd like to hear them talk about it. This cannot be only an issue of the police. So now we will have a new round of questions. Maria Inês, newspaper O Dia. I'd like to know if someone from Amnesty involved in this research suffered any kind of threat or intimidation, especially in the field work in the community and the police institutions. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mônica Cunha. I am the coordinator and the founder of the movement Moleque, which has mothers and family members of, and I am also in the movement against violence. So I'd like to thank Amnesty International to join our fight, to join our scream that we couldn't let out, resulting from the death of our sons. So this visibility that we have the opportunity provided by Amnesty International to show that our young sons and daughters could not be killed the way they were, and also showing that this state, this country, the absurd way they kill our sons because they are black. This is the worst thing of all, because this is the reason they killed them, only because they were black and poor and lived in the slums. And this is no reason to kill a human being the way we lost our sons. So I'd like to thank Amnesty International. I'd like to thank Attila, Alexandre, and Renata, and all of you for letting us scream to the whole world and know what they are doing to our sons in this country and in this state. We will not allow anymore to be mothers of young sons and daughters who are being killed. We have to thank you because we don't know if we would have this opportunity if it weren't for Amnesty. Thank you. As Monica didn't ask a question, two of you. My name is Márcia Romano. I'd like to quote the Secretary of Security, Beltrame. He criticized the study and he said, it is unfair to talk about those cases in a moment where we see the crime levels in Rio going down. There is a stigma against policemen. So I'd like to ask how important it is to, how do you analyze me? Good morning. Pedro Eisenberg from ISER, the Institute of Religious Studies. I'd like to congratulate you. I think it is essential to discuss this subject on a public debate. It is a debate where the pain and the expression of this pain can be combined with data, with qualified information, so that we can act in public security with the human sensibility that the subject requires, but also with the responsibility that the data brings us. So I'd like to ask your comments about two issues. First, there is a bold debate that needs to be done. As Alexandre said, we need to avoid a dichotomy where if the boys are or not involved. So this is a perverse logic. If they are involved, for instance, in the drug traffic, this would justify their execution. So this is put in the imaginary of the Brazilian society, justice by the own hands, based on a mistake, on an identification with the drug dealers. So on the one hand, we see people being lynched, and on the other hand, police officers executing people, and ask you about the challenges ahead to avoid this trap. And the second issue is, I think it is natural that we talk about the police. The police are responsible for two important aspects, but I believe the office and the judicial system. There is a lack of accountability both by the press and to the judicial system, and the protection they give to the system, to this perverse logic of production of deaths. And so I'd like to congratulate you, and that we have a huge challenge ahead.
We are fully, frequently, and also frequently in Rio, and family members that denounce lethal force by the police, that they are targets of threats and also of direct attacks. We are worried about those people, and we are concerned, especially regarding family members, witnesses, and activists. Eyewitnesses also, where those murders be. We worry about that are related to those cases, and ensure security of eyewitnesses activists and family members. Their role is paramount in the fulfillment of justice, and these people cannot keep on living under intimidation and permanent risk. I would like also to say that Amnesty International is and will always be, Monica, and I address you, on the side of family members, on the side of you in this fight for justice. The fight for justice, the denouncing that we are doing, our campaign has only a meaning if we do it side by side with you, if we join you in your fight and the fight that you started on the spot, on the moment that you experienced the loss of your loved ones. And there is a relevant fact that we bring in our report, which is have the report in your hands. You will be able to read and see the great effort that Amnesty brought about to contextualize public security in policies here in Brazil, the advancements, the efforts that have been undertaken here as to reduce interventions. We saw one of the slides talking about it, and this is important also in our report. But we bring an important fact. Since we had the opportunity to zoom into a region, we were able to state clearly that in a specific area in the year of 2014, we were able to get information about 9 cases, and in those 9 cases, we have evidence of extrajudicial executions. To stop. This also raises another question: beyond the cases that turn and also object of further investigation, what about the invisible cases? What about that we have tried to zoom into those cases and show what is happening there, and what is behind the other 244 cases of police intervention? Only investigation of all those cases can solve those cases. Understand the dynamic involving those cases, and then once we do that, we can further by law enforcement and reduce also extrajudicial executions. This dichotomy that you mentioned, if a person is related to drug trade or not, we understand as Amnesty, and we try to bring forward in this also of two. They always say, why didn't get people arrested? So the activity of the police of reduce crime is not incompatible with the right to life of those people. If they have been involved in drug trade, if they are really criminals, well, they have to be thoroughly investigated and held accountable according to judicial procedure. Extrajudicial executions are not admissible, especially in a democratic rule of law. And this is the debate that we're bringing here. We hear frequently that people say that there are criminals and policemen have to kill them. We have to deconstruct this logic within our society that a good criminal is a dead criminal. We have to understand within the society that we have to preserve life. I would love to give the floor to Attila and to Alexandre to comment on that. Thank you, Renata. I would like to reinforce what Renata just said about the May mothers, mães de other activists say that you mean a lot to us in matters of fighting for life and fighting for a fairer, a more just Brazil. This is a paramount value, the life as such, and of course, any lost lives of anyone, of any person, is a tremendous and an irreversible loss. We have ruptures in life stories. We have memories that go away, loves and emotions, affections. Everything goes away. So life has been defended, has been guaranteed at all. I would like Alexander to comment a little bit more about the role of justice, since Renata talked a little bit about the profile of our cases. But I would like to address Marcia Romano right now about this note by the Secretary Beltrami. As I said in the beginning of this press conference, we know that we have been heard by those responsible to deal now with that, this inheritance of the situation of public security in Rio. We understand that it is not them on those heads of police force. It is very hard to find a balanced debate, and I understand the frustration of the Secretary of Public Security. He feels that he is being attacked harshly. The theme is we're not dealing with personal matters, or we're not saying anything against personally the heads of police force. We understand there have been advancements. We understand that the heads of police force in Rio aims at the betterment of the situation here. But a real betterment depends on many other instances of the society and on the engagement of many society members. On the other hand, Amnesty has the duty to express the problems that still persist, although we had betterments. We are talking about many cases of so-called instance followed by death, but there were also increases between 2014 and 2015 of 40%. And if we compare the first semester of 2015 and the first semester of 2014, we had an increase of 22%. So this is giving us a sign that the tendency of reduction of police homicides has been reversing. So I believe what we say in the title of our report is very important. It gives voice to life. It has exactly to do with that. It's as you can see, the report says, "You killed my son." When we address here a son, we are talking about the son of everyone. It could be the son of a policeman. The logic of war is a logic where everyone is about to lose something. So I understand what the secretary said. He's talking about his own. He's talking of his own position. And it was very important for us to sit at the negotiation table with them, with him together with the heads of police force. I guess the discussion was very important. We will have divergencies. Of course, we are in different positions. This is inevitable. But I would like to give the floor to Alexander to talk about the question of Pedro. As you talked, Pedro, about the role of the Public Prosecution's Office, the report has reached the conclusion that the Public Prosecution's Office has failed to act, has not investigated, has not followed up investigations. We have data from 2011 that after 4 years, those indictments or those investigations are still on the hands of the Public Prosecution's Office. We have no closing of those investigations. This is a recent data that has been corroborated by other data of 2015. we bring data from 2011, and we have other data of 2015 that show exactly the same. There's no prioritization of investigations, of proper investigations. We have data of one officer that stated to us how investigations are written down. We see the legitimation and we see the legitimation there, the criminalization of the victim, and there are many efforts to confirm always the version stated by the police officer, especially within the civil police. There is the case of Maicon. He was a 2-year-old boy. He was murdered in 1996, and up until now, Public Prosecution's Office has not indicted. And we have many family members of him here, and we have the responsibility to bring this crime forward so that it does. On the other hand, we know that Public Prosecution's Office has a constitutional duty to control external police action and the control of use of lethal force by the police. We know that this is not taking place in the state of Rio, and the justice system. I would like to address this also. We had last year a meeting of the National Forum of Public Security, and they talked there also about the years that take to complete investigations. We have Edneia, one of the leaders of Mothers Abacari. She was murdered in '93. There was no closure of this investigation. She was very important as a person in Acari, and this case was not brought to trial up until now. And the problem with murder investigations, if we take so much time to investigate, it tends to lead, well, to impede investigations to come to an end, because witnesses are able to they move or they might forget, and this will lead to a insufficient closure of the case. We will stop the streaming right now, but we will keep up discussing. Before we end up streaming, I would like to thank again every family member here, every activists and friends, and all of those that took the time to come here to share experiences with us. I know this is not hard. This is not easy for us. I'm very happy. I'm very glad to be here as executive director. I'm very glad to work for Amnesty International. I'm very glad for the team that I have here. They're excellent here in Brazil as well as internationally. I would like for you that are listening to us, I would like to state that I would like to thank everyone who wanted to talk to us, who was willing to give their testimony to us during this research time. I would not be able to state all of them nominally, but I will thank community members, specialists, police officers, security staff, all of those that dedicated their precious time to get together with us and to listen, to criticize, to help us to construct a better report, to correct mistakes. So without this help, we wouldn't be able to. Like to thank the report. This is a collective work above all, above being a report from Amnesty International. An important part of civil society is here adding up and taking a step forward to build up democracy. Thank you, and I would like to thank also those that are listening. We will keep on talking about the theme. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Gente, já tem mais 4 pessoas, já tem mais 6 inscrições, e eu sugiro que a gente feche com esse último bloco final, entre manifestações e inscrições. Então, com a dele. Eu vou listar quem está aqui embaixo, e a Mariana vai abrir para aqui em cima, que já estão escolhidas. Então, vamos fazer assim, a gente faz as 6 juntas e volta para a mesa. Tudo bem? Eu vou fazer as 4 aqui e a gente sobe, tá? Então, tem mais um, peraí. Vamos começar aqui com vocês dois, depois eu volto aqui para o IDDH e a Fundação volta.
Posso ir? Obrigado. Eu sou Flávio Wittlin, eu sou secretário-geral da ONG Vira Mundo e sou coordenador do curso de Educação em Saúde e Saneamento Ambiental da PUC. E tive uma passagem, tenho passagem em várias comunidades, Rocinha, Complexo do Alemão, Acari, Costa Barros, com o Médicos Sem Fronteiras, onde a gente via essa ação da polícia entrando, atirando primeiro, para depois perguntar sobre o que estava acontecendo. Mas eu tenho uma questão que eu queria entender bem, assim, a posição da anistia em relação ao conceito de direitos humanos. Porque eu entendi e acho pertinente que a principalidade esteja em relação à ação dos agentes do Estado quando violam os direitos humanos. Tem sido o vetor principal e que deve ser cobrado. Mas se não cabe também, na questão da violação dos direitos humanos, enfocar a questão de milicianos, traficantes e justiceiros nessas comunidades. Até porque, historicamente, os crimes de lesa humanidade, eles vêm em relação ao processo histórico de forças nazifascistas e até do Bloco dos Aliados violando direitos humanos. Está aí a bomba contra o Japão, que foi uma grande violação de direitos humanos. E vimos também na história que organizações de civis, bandos paramilitares, e mais recentemente a máfia também viola direitos humanos. Então a pergunta é saber se está na agenda da Anistia Internacional, além, principalmente, de avaliar a violação de direitos humanos praticada por agentes dos Estados, aquelas praticadas por esses outros elementos, numa visão de 360 graus da problemática dos direitos humanos.
Eu vou ser muito breve, claro. Em primeiro lugar, saudar. Meu nome é Julita Lengruber, eu sou coordenadora do Centro de Estudos de Segurança e Cidadania, parceira, centro que é parceiro da Anistia há muito tempo. E eu queria não só saudar esse relatório, mas eu queria também saudar a coragem da Anistia, né, de assumir que a guerra às drogas tem um papel, sim, muito grande nessa violência que acontece nos centros urbanos do Rio de Janeiro. Grande parte dessa violência que acontece no Rio de Janeiro é justificada pela falida, fracassada, sangrenta, insensata guerra às drogas. A guerra às drogas dá à polícia uma carta branca, legitima a ação da polícia, a ação violenta da polícia nessas comunidades. Então, eu queria realmente saudar, Átila, a sua coragem, né? A fala da Renata foi muito clara em mencionar o peso, né, dessa sangrenta guerra às drogas, que faz vítimas por todos os lados, né? As mortes são de moradores, de supostos traficantes, de policiais, enfim, é uma guerra onde todos nós perdemos, e eu queria realmente parabenizar a Anistia por ter coragem de assumir o peso dessa guerra às drogas nesse cenário.
Bom dia. Meu nome é Laís Benevides, eu sou membro do Instituto Defensores de Direitos Humanos, DDH, que também é uma instituição parceira da Anistia há um tempo. Queria saudar a elaboração do relatório, que é muito importante, por trazer à tona e publicizar as violações, principalmente na área de Jacari, dizer que nós trabalhamos também com as mães de Jacari, fazendo as ações de responsabilização civil de algumas delas, e só focar